Okay, so solar power is going through something incredible right now. Take a look at this chart. The world went from 1 gigawatt of solar capacity in the year 2000 to 1 terawatt in 2022. That's a 1,000% increase. But then in only 3 years, we're about to double that to 2 terawatts of capacity. Now, to put that into perspective, 2 terawatts of power could run 92 million US households. And in 2025, this trend is still accelerating. Now that's thanks to 2 big factors. First, solar power is now cheaper than ever to produce. The cost has dropped more than 99% since 1970, making it one of the cheapest forms of energy. And second, advances in battery technology mean we can store that energy for when we use it the most, in the evening. So this all sounds great, right? Well, there's a problem with all this new solar capacity. Where are we going to put all these solar panels? Now here in California, the obvious choice might be in the sunny Central Valley, because there's plenty of flat land there. But it's also a huge farming hub. 25% of the nation's food is grown here. You can't just cover it all with solar panels. So how do we balance the need for clean energy with the ability to still grow food?
It turns out the answer is actually taking shape right here, behind these almond orchards in California. And this idea could answer California's prayers for more water. Now it's a solution so simple and obvious that people have been talking about this in California for decades. So I came out to the Central Valley to get a closer look at the future of solar power.
Now before we get into solar panels, let me take you to where this project really begins. Here, in the Sierra Nevada mountains. This is where most of California gets its water. Every spring, that mountain snow melts into reservoirs and travels through thousands of miles of man-made canals to reach our homes and California farms. But as water flows through the hot Central Valley, we lose billions of gallons of water to evaporation. That's a big problem in California because water is a precious resource here. Okay, so here's where those solar panels come in. This is Project Nexus, and its concept is pretty simple. Cover the canals with solar panels so that we can both generate electricity and protect the water from evaporating in the sun. Now, you might have seen a similar idea in parking lots, like solar canopies over our cars that keep them from baking in the sun.
We estimated that if we covered all 4,000 miles of California's major canals, we could save up to 63 billion gallons of water.
This is Brandi McKuin. She's a UC Merced scientist on the Project Nexus team, and it was her research paper that set this whole project into motion. For years, people have talked about putting solar over water to help with evaporation. And India even built the first solar canals prototype in 2014.
One thing I'm surprised by is how many people that have told me they had the idea for this project. And certainly this was not my idea. We've learned a lot from the very first prototype in India, but we didn't know what the social, economic, and environmental impacts would be if we did this at scale across California's 4,000 miles of major canals. So that's what we did. We did a hydrologic simulation and a techno-economic analysis to better understand that.
Besides saving 63 billion gallons of water, Brandi found that covering all of California's man-made canals with solar could also generate 13 gigawatts of power. Okay, you could think of it like this. That's enough clean energy and water for everyone in San Francisco and San Diego combined. The idea to use solar panels to stop evaporation has been around for decades, but it didn't move forward until Brandi ran a simulation. Her paper caused a bit of a stir in California, and a bunch of groups came together to make it a reality. There's the Turlock Irrigation District, who maintains the canals and delivers the water to farms. The California Department of Water, who funded the project and is very interested in saving water. There's Solar Aquagrid, the company that basically spearheaded the whole project, secured funding, and brought everyone together to make it a reality. And then there's Brandi and UC Merced, who continue to study and analyze the project to make sure it's working as efficiently as possible. Now, before covering all of California's canals with solar, we need to test it out first. Right now, Project Nexus consists of 2 different prototypes. There's the narrow span that covers a 30-foot wide section of the canal with 2 solar arrays. And then there's the wide span, which covers a section that's a whopping 130 feet wide. Both are located in California's Central Valley, a major farming hub that grows 25% of the nation's food. Brandi's research estimates that this project could save enough water to irrigate 50,000 acres of farmland.
Agriculture is a really important part of the story. Around us are all these almond trees, and this is some of the most productive farmland in the nation. And so we can multitask, save water to produce more food, and generate electricity that can be locally used at the same time.
Solar over canals provides an alternative, saving water for farms without using up precious land. You can think of it like, if you were installing solar panels for your home, you wouldn't put them in the backyard, you'd put them on your house. The same is true in California.
There's an already built environment, like these irrigation canals.
And we can add solar to these so that we're not displacing plants and animals, like the desert tortoise here, or using up valuable farmland. Okay, so why don't we see more of these dual land use solar projects? Well, part of it is cost. those iconic ground-level solar farms are cheaper and easier to install. Like, let's say you wanted to cover every building in San Francisco with solar. First, you'd have to get everyone's permission, and it's a much trickier engineering challenge. Each building is different and requires custom installation. You also have to consider shade from nearby buildings. Solar canals, on the other hand, they might require more customization than typical solar farms, but you can install a lot of panels for each project without taking up any land. Covering all of California's canals with solar doesn't just magically solve all of our energy problems, but it shows how we can be creative with the way we use solar. And it isn't the only innovative idea that people have. Some farms are experimenting with agrovoltaics. This is where solar panels are raised above crops so that the shade helps plants retain moisture and reduce heat stress on the plants. In hot, dry climates, this can make a huge difference. This works really well for shade-tolerant crops like root vegetables, berries, and leafy greens. In fact, China has become a global leader in this approach, with large-scale solar farms built over fields of goji berries. Another approach is floating solar, basically placing the panels directly on the water in reservoirs and lakes. And the principle is similar. Shade reduces evaporation and keeps the water cooler, which also can improve the amount of electricity that the panels produce. Now, when solar panels heat up, they tend to become less efficient, like our phones or our computers when they heat up and they don't work properly. That cooler water under the panels keeps their temperatures in check. Now, all of these approaches come with their own design challenges. You might notice that Project Nexus panels are built higher off the water than the ones in India. Ideally, the panels would be as close as possible to the canal water to stop evaporation and keep the panels cool. But the water district needs to regularly clean out silt, algae, and other vegetation from the water. But the team is now exploring a new design.
There's an exciting prototype that we will test here. It's going to be much lower profile and it's retractable design so they can push the panels in whenever they need to access the canal for maintenance and cleaning. So we're really excited about that. But I think that just the fact that this project exists, that is kind of driving innovation in that space.
Solar panels are also surprisingly durable and typically last somewhere between 30 and 35 years. These panels are designed to withstand 1-inch hail at 50-mile-per-hour winds. Now, Project Nexus isn't the only solar over canal project. For example, in Arizona, the Gila River Indian community has installed solar canopies over one of their canals. Thousands of years ago, indigenous communities in this region had built a canal system for farming. But when Europeans arrived in the 1800s, they diverted the river's water away from these communities. It wasn't until the 1930s that tribes regained some access through the construction of a new reservoir.
For the world to see that a tribal nation can do this, and this links so beautifully to our traditions. If this moment becomes a movement, we're going to look back and just to see that this is a historic time in how we address and adapt to our changing environment.
With more solar canal projects up and running in the US, engineers can troubleshoot problems and refine their designs for different environments, all of which advances the technology much faster. And Brandi's team is there to see what designs actually work the best. On a typical canal, the radiant heat from the sun turns the water into water vapor, and then the wind blows the water vapor away. Brandi is using sensors to measure exactly how much water is evaporating under the shade of these solar panels.
It sounds really simple studying shade, but actually the amount of irradiance that's on the water surface, there's a little bit of light transmitted through the solar panels and there are gaps between them. When we're modeling something theoretical, there's a lot of things we learn by studying them in the real world that aren't captured in models.
With Brandi's research, each prototype can be refined to work even better. Private companies have to worry about making a profit, which makes it hard to explore ideas that might not pay off right away. And that's where universities like UC Merced come in, places where people can ask those big what-if questions that go on to inspire industry.
It's amazing. I never thought in my wildest dreams that something that was a conceptual paper would end up being something that we can test in the real world.
Okay, after sweating out there in the 100-degree heat, I can tell you firsthand, the shade from those solar canals felt amazing. The funny thing is, we barely think about shade when we design and build our own communities. Take a look at this playground slide in LA. It has a surface temperature of 120 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not really something you want your kids playing on. And it isn't just hot surfaces. On a hot, sunny day, shade can reduce the heat load on our bodies by a whopping 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Check out our video that looks at what we can do to design cooler neighborhoods. And it's a whole lot more than just planting trees.